Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Unplugged with Taylor. We are here tonight with Albany Owens, and she is coming to us all the way from New Zealand. This is going to be a great episode. Albany is a women's love and empowerment coach and also a somatic rebirth therapist. So it's going to be a great conversation. Albany, I'm just going to go ahead and jump in and ask you a tough question. If you had to pick one thing that was the greatest barrier for women, particularly successful women, in experiencing healthy relationships, what would you say it is?
Okay, so one thing is really hard. I've definitely got like three main things. But if we want one for successful women, especially, is we are still very much in this masculine energy of the do, of the achieving, of the going for things and chasing things, which is amazing for our businesses and being entrepreneurs, which is great. We need that masculine side. But I think when it comes to relationships now, a lot of us are kind of still stepping into the masculine role. And this is what I teach, particularly with women after we've done the deep healing work, which is probably one of the most important. I have like 3 tiers. But the feminine energy is a really big part because it feels so counterintuitive to us now, especially as high achieving, successful women that live in this very masculine, doing, productivity oriented world. So learning really how to come back into our feminine essence and energy is what's going to bring our men closer to us. It's what's going to help him feel more inspired to provide more, to chase us, to connect with us more. Because if we've got a masculine and a masculine, it's not going to work. He doesn't want to be with his bro. He wants to be with the gorgeous, radiant feminine that you are, right? And this isn't only to be like, oh, women have to be all girly and wear lipstick and pink dresses. It's about the woman actually being so secure in her feminine that she shows all of that love to herself and putting herself on the pedestal rather than putting the man on the pedestal. So she is feeling like in her queen era, and it shows the man how to respect her just from her loving herself, living a vibrant life, looking after herself, and knowing how much she is worthy of deep, passionate, secure, healthy love. So along with the deep healing work, which is essential, feminine energy is one thing that a lot of successful women miss because it feels so counterintuitive to us, because we're so used to being in this more masculine doing energy now. Yeah, that's what I would say.
What a beautiful explanation of that. And I love the way you described it because I think that sometimes especially when you talk about like different waves of feminism, sometimes maybe the pendulum has swung too far. And there's this idea that when you say you're in your feminine, and your counterpart is in his masculine, that means subservience. And it doesn't in the traditional sense in which we think of it. And, like I really loved what you said about it means that you love yourself enough that you respect your own boundaries, you respect your own values, you have your own life, you have your own interests, you are invested in yourself. So I think that's a really important. I don't think there's been a lot of that modeled in different, I know, like, especially not in Western culture, that we haven't had a great model for that. And it's interesting to me, I think about like, where did my idea of, I didn't really see a lot of healthy relationships at all growing up, but I have this very like fixed idea of what a relationship looks like. So I've been reflecting a lot, thinking, where did this like image come from? And it kind of hit me. I was like, movies. And And what you're
Yeah.
describing is really not what we have gotten on the big screen or in TV. It's usually that someone's coming to save you, you're helpless, women doing all the emotional labor. Like it's
Yeah, and it's also generational, right? Like what we've been passed down um in so many cultures, but it's there's a lot of generational trauma there that's been passed down from us, that we must, you know, do all of the emotional labor, the household labor, the child rearing. And it's, even though all of those things are seen as classically feminine, it actually still puts us in the masculine, because we are doing all of the things and giving and pouring into everyone else's cup and not pouring into our own cup. And you know, a lot of us become shells of ourselves because we are giving, doing so much. And that's not the true sort of feminine essence, is to sort of allow and receive, you know, just like, you know, the egg and the sperm. You know, we don't go chasing after the egg and doing all of these the sperm and going chasing after the sperm. The sperm comes to us, and we're just in our like gorgeous, you know, essence. And it's not to say don't do the housework and don't go and live your dream life, but it's also like being so secure in yourself and being the flower that the bee comes to. Yeah, the flower doesn't chase the bee. Does that make sense? It's
it
like, it's something
absolutely.
that I really had to learn, because I was in my masculine for so long with guys, thinking that I was in my feminine, but I was always unconsciously chasing, whether that was through gift giving or, you know, planning all the dates, making the first move, always texting more than him. And I was always like, why are these guys always like, you know, why do they lose interest? You know, they're all like hot in the beginning, love bomb and really interested, and then they lose interest when the woman starts going more towards them. This is the thing, right? They come towards us, and then we start going, ooh, you know, oh yeah. Like, I'll put more in effort now because you've shown me some interest. But what's happening is you're actually going this way, so they have to, you know, come
Yeah.
back. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent there, but it
No.
all sort of intertwines, and this is where a lot of marriages suffer, is that the man has gone like this to get the woman, and then now that she has him, it's all like more like this, you know, where she feels like she's helping him a lot and she's doing a lot for him, and she's booking all of the vacations, and it just pushes him into his feminine then. And that's where they become lazy and they don't put in effort. And, you know, it's like there has to be a polarity and a balance, is what I teach.
Let me ask you this. Another question that I kind of thought of. So I think about the trope that you see where, you know, like you said in the beginning, there maybe you had this couple that was dating and there was all this effort on the side of the man. Well, then fast forward to however many years later, they're together, they're married, maybe there's children, and this trope of the wife that's up early, she's making everybody's breakfast, she's making everybody's lunch, she's doing everything. Husband is you know, thank you, gets his stuff on the way out the door to work or whatever. Think about and like you said, the woman is doing all of the work, and it feels like he's very much just in and out as he pleases. Like there
Mm.
isn't, you know, there's this disconnect. What does
Mm.
that look like? And obviously, that's a trope or a stereotype. If you could create a new trope or stereotype about fast forward from the dating piece, day in the life of a married couple where the woman is fully embodied in her feminine, and then you have a healthy masculine counterpart, what does that look like? Just like that dynamic.
Yeah, well, you know, if that's what you like doing as a woman, you know, like that trope, that's absolutely great. That's fine. As long as you're feeling loved, supported, secure. If you like to do that, that's great. Um, and you know, it's so different now because a
Let
lot
me
of,
add that because it's not the act of doing those things, but let's pretend that in this trope, she feels
yeah,
resentful.
resentful. Yeah, and that's so common, right? Like so common. So the a good trope for me, from what I would see, would be, you know, balance of, you know, you communicate of as to how you share the load so that the other person never feels resentful. Like, I mean, there's going to be points where you naturally feel resentful at points, but if you have this communication of, okay, this is what really lights me up to do, and this is what really like drags me down. Like, I really just hate putting the sheet on the bed. Can you help me with that? So every so often, you know, if you've if you can establish like healthy a balance of that. And it could even just be like, okay, I'll do the housework, but can you take the mental load of making the appointments? You know, because that's what a lot of us women do. We take all of the mental load of the appointments, the birthdays, the groceries, you know, the even the list. Even if the man goes and does it, maybe you're writing the list and things like that. So the perfect um situation for that would be that you are both making time to do your own thing. You both have a hobby or hobbies and separate friends, close friends together as well as a couple, but separate people as well, possibly. And making sure that you actually have time away from each other is so important, I feel. And what I've seen with clients as well is that separation to actually let the person miss you, and build the desire again. Like, and it's building a bit of mystery, like, oh, what has he been up to today, or what's she been up to today? There is a very important aspect of when you get so comfortable with another person, there still needs to be a little bit of, you know, mystery and playfulness there. So it's definitely to have those two things, the hobbies and the outside kind of things happening. But when you're together, it's so important to have that connection time and not just be like, you know, this, I don't know if you've heard of this like roommate trope as well. Like you've just become like roommates. You're like, oh, hey, how was work? And you talk about the same thing all the time. And just having intentional time where you both put the phones down, there's no screens, and just a check-in, you know, a check-in, do something, you know, a novelty thing as well. Like me and my fiance sometimes will like find questions on TikTok, and it's like, you know, intimacy questions or questions to get to know your soulmate, and it just breaks you out of that repetitive cycle, and that's where people start to get bored and, you know, resentful and things like that. um but yeah, does that answer your question in a
Yeah,
way?
it does, and it makes me think about like what most people are looking for in dating. I think a lot of people are dating because they're lonely and they want to meet a partner. And
Mm,
that is exactly what you're describing. That creates a problem because if you are lonely
yes.
and you're looking for someone to fill that void or that gap or that loneliness in your life, there's going to naturally be, you're going to draw that in the other person. And then there's going to be a meshment where,
Yeah.
just like you said, it leads to boredom, it leads to burnout in the relationship, it leads to like this loss of identity between the two
Mm,
people, and really just this back and forth of getting their needs met. And there's going to naturally be times where it's not happening, and if you don't have established communication, and you're not comfortable communicating about those things, that resentment is going to lead to um, cheating or discarding the
yeah.
relationship.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And I think something that just popped in then is like a lot of people start the relationship usually as their best selves, right? And then once they've kind of gotten comfortable with each other, they start to, like you say, they might lose a bit of self-identity. And I think one of the most important things in a relationship, and I kind of touched on that before, was keeping your self-identity is so important, and constantly just like trying to improve yourself. And it's like sometimes I think a lot of people think you're not the man I fell in love with, or you're not the woman I fell in love with, which is normal, right? For like, say if you've been together for decades, but as long as that man or that woman is always trying to, you know, be better, be a better version of themselves, improve yourselves inside the relationship, that's going to keep the fire burning as well, the passion burning. Like, let them see you doing something that you're really into, you know. And every so often do dress up and feel nice again, you know, and remind each other why you did fall in love with each other. And I think there's such a trap, because we're all so busy all the time, and there's just like so many phones and screens all the time. We just get trapped in these like habits, and like you say, and that leads to this boredom piece. And I just think for women, I see so many women, and I hear so many women say, I just have lost myself in this marriage, or in this, you know, since being a mother. And I get it, and I can totally see that. And I've done that many times in relationships. But one of the most important things is staying true to yourself and loving yourself so freaking much that, you know, if that man leaves you tomorrow, you're going to be okay. And that's one of the biggest things. And this is what keeps, I know this is what keeps my man coming, is he's like, I know I could lose you any day. He says that. He's like, I chase you. I do nice things for you because I know you don't need me. And that is such a good place for a woman to be in. This is, again, what I teach.
The embodiment of feminine.
Yeah, I don't need you. I want you. That is so, can you see the difference? Like, that is so sexy. Like, and he says this to me, it's like,
consciously choosing to be there every day, and then he is creating
the choice
you want to choose to be in.
Yeah, and like, I'm not saying to, like, you know, tell women to always be like, I don't need you, and you know, like I could have anyone.
It's ready.
It's not like that. It's just like, he knows I'm a high value woman that loves myself so much, and I've got a great life on my own, that he is an addition to my life. And I absolutely adore him and love him, and I would hopefully never does leave me, but he knows that I'll be good, because I have built up my self-worth and confidence so much that, and this is what I want all women to feel, is that you don't need a man, you just want a man, and that's great, but they should always know that that's the case, right? Because that's what will keep them coming. If they think, oh, I've got her in the bag, she's all mine, she's not going to leave me, you know, she's just going to sit at home in her sweatpants all day, and just like, she's never going to go out, and
home.
it's like, that's when they get complacent, you know. And that's what we would do as well if our man was
a conscious, natural function of,
it's when you love yourself so much and you have so much self-worth, you become so desirable because they feel that, right? If you're like wallowing in self-pity and always texting them and always like helping them and needing to do things for them and always cooking for them and always doing the stuff, and then expecting them to be like, oh my God, I'm so grateful, you're such a great girlfriend or wife, it's not going to happen. You have to be so self-assured and self-confident that they feel that. And that's the same for everything, right? That's the same in business, with your colleagues, with your friends. Like, just be the lighthouse, you know, be the self-confident lighthouse.
And just, you know, thinking about what that could look like would be like, it's great if you want to make dinner most of the time. Like, I love to cook for the person that I'm with, but I'm really not that. So, But that an example of that would be if you're in this habit of making dinner and you're like, oh, but my friends invited me to go to this. Hey,
Mm,
I'm going with my friends tonight, and being comfortable having this relationship where there's not gonna be this, like, I've been in a relationship where I was cooking, and then if I didn't, he there was this resentment. And I mean, come
oof.
come to find out there
Mm,
the communication wasn't there, and he was internalizing that as she doesn't love me enough. If she loved me more, she wouldn't choose going with her friends over me. And so it looks like this controlling,
ooh.
but beneath that was she's not choosing me, and that's his own, like, that was his own, like, subconscious belief of not being worthy. And so that can
Mm,
on both sides as well. There becomes this, like, expectation in the other person. You already are struggling with your own inner sense of self-worth. And so anything that they do where they choose themselves, which people should choose themselves, you're going to internalize that as, oh, well, they don't love me. And then there's that resentment, that anger, that manipulation,
mm.
that to control, all those things that are would be wounded examples of the feminine or masculine. And I'm sure you see.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, well, there's two sides to this that you definitely have to have a healthy balance. Like, I love doing things for my fiance, but it's definitely balanced. It's not all me doing everything because a lot of the time, here's the thing, a lot of the time, yes, it's natural for women to be nurturers and we want to give and we want to care and we want to like make people feel good. But sometimes it's a little bit sneaky. Sometimes we do it because we want the man to think that we're amazing. We want the man to be like, wow, she's such a good housewife, or we want the man to imagine us as their wife or something, right? And it's kind of manipulative in a
Absolutely.
way. And
It's
yes, it's
really wanting to
beautiful.
be chosen.
We
It's a
want to be chosen.
let me do
Yes.
something so that let me do something for you so that you will want me more, or that you will do something for me in return.
Nailed it. Nailed it. And this is what
Girl, 'cause
I
I've been
always used
there.
to do. I used to do this all the time. And then I'd be like, and then he'd leave me, and I'd be like, I did everything perfect. I did this and I did this and listen, can you hear yourself? I did. I wasn't being anymore. I was just putting on this like role that I thought that men want to
Oh,
try and be this girl. And it's like, yes, it was me. I love buying people gifts and I love cooking for people, but I was doing it instead of looking after myself and yeah, and going and doing my hobbies. I would blow friends off to just stay in the night with him and they can feel that. It's like, he didn't fall in love with a woman that stays at home. He fell in love with the outgoing girl. And now all of a sudden I'm at home cooking and just doing like wife shit without a ring on my finger. And yeah, so that's one point is we do have to have the balance. Of course, I'm not saying don't cook for your man and do
yeah.
nice things for your man, but if you feel like you're doing it so that your man feels a certain way, probably step back from that, babe, and have a little think, why am I doing this? And just pour that love back into your fucking self. Sorry
Yes.
for
Well, no, girl, I love an F. This is an F-bomb friendly platform.
Yay!
So that makes me think, I mean, that resentment piece on both sides, that, I had a relationship a a year ago that was just the epitome of that. It was
Mm,
there was do nice things for the other person, but it's really rooted in, I mean, both of us were like that, because he would buy me something, and then a week later when I didn't do something he wanted me to do, it was, I'm always doing things for you. Okay, well, that right there says when you do the things, it's not from a place of love, it's from a place of, I will do this and this will yield me this
mhm.
level of control, or love in return, however I
Yeah,
perceive that from that person. So, and
yeah,
I'm guilty of that myself also. It leads to natural resentment because you're doing something for
yeah.
another person to get something back, not just because you want to do it from a place of love. And that's a hard realization to come to. So do
Yeah.
you think it's difficult in coaching women when they're describing these scenarios and you're seeing that's what it is, to help them make that shift in their
Yeah, it's
perspective?
really hard because it's so counterintuitive to us. Like you say, we think if we do something, we get something back. But actually, when we're doing that too much and it's very unbalanced, it is like we are chasing them. It is like, Mimi, come, like, look what I've done for you. Like, come, like, look at all these things I've helped you with. And they don't actually want that. And one of the things I was going to say to you about this guy that was saying, oh, look at all these things I've done for you. I do everything for you. That's not, obviously, you know this now. If your man says that to you, he is not your man, babe. Like, masculine, empowered men want to do things for their woman. You know? Like, they that's what they're like. I feel like I speak to so many men and they feel like that's what they're here for. And a lot of the time it kind of gets taken away from them in relationships because women start to step up and think that's what we're here for as well. And it's like there needs to be some polarity and there needs to be balance. So it is really hard when I'm helping women with this, because this is all we've ever known, really. We've only really known, you know, it was only one generation ago where our mums didn't even have bank accounts and they had to stay at home all day and look after the kids and do all of the washing and cook all of the food. We are only now just stepping into being, you know, entrepreneurs and business women and high-end CEOs. It's such a new world for us that we're now trying to do both and it's not working, and that's what's causing the resentment. And
No,
it's like
an example for what it's supposed to look like. That's what I was thinking. You're literally up against conditioning, heavy conditioning.
heavy conditioning. And again, from the movies as well, still like they're getting better, but it's still giving this like, I don't know. In most movies I see women in their masculine.
What people
You
want to
know,
see. That's, you can predict the outcome, like every romantic comedy. You can predict how it's going to flow. There's going to be this, and there's going to be this big blow up where both sides didn't communicate. You're going to see both perspectives, and then she's going to reach out and he's not going to do this, and then he's going to show up with some grand gesture at the end where,
yeah,
and it's like so predictable. And I think that they keep making movies that way is because our nervous systems want that. They want that
yes, the
predictability.
drama.
Yeah. And then when somebody's not, riding through the streets on a horse, like knocking people out of the way to get to you, you're like, well, this isn't enough.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there is that thing of like, you know, we have to be careful sometimes when we're like, if he wanted to, he would. Like, I do still, honestly, I do kind of still hold that quite true, but there are always exceptions, you know. But I do still say that a lot because if he was the right guy for you and you're being in your magic and your radiance and your confidence and just being authentically you, he would do it if he wanted to. And if he doesn't, then he's not for you. Like, stop trying to read between the lines. If the man shows you who he is by, not doing, not consistently not making effort, consistently letting you down, you're always texting him first, he's making you feel a bit insecure, then he's not for you, and just let it be. You don't have to create, like we were saying with limerence, you don't have to create this idea of this magical man. There's so many more men out there who would die to be in this other man's position. And this is the kind of mindset that I really would love women to be in, is like, if not him, something better, you know? Because
Yes.
it is. You always upgrade.
Here, I like both sides of that statement. But there's the thing that I don't, or I like both sides of not I like both sides. I think there are two sides to that statement, and I can resonate with both of them. That's what I was looking
Yes.
to say. So I think that in a sense, it implies that, like, oh, it's just he doesn't want you kind of thing. I don't think that sometimes that's the case. I don't think always. I think
No,
men have their own
there's
set.
always exceptions.
But I think that it is important that we don't get caught up in the, well, somebody hurt his feelings in the 8th grade. And since then, he can't. That's their thing to work out. If you have fully done your work, if you're in your feminine, if you are like have poured into yourself, and this other
Hmm.
person has their own things to work through that they have not, and they're not showing up for you, then like you said, it's, best of luck on your journey, and move along. It
Yeah.
should be this, um, oh, well, if they could just work through XYZ, that because that's
Mm.
masculine, because that's you doing the labor to try to bring this person along. And also you're enabling them because, like you said,
Yeah.
they're feminine, because they should be stepping up to do that work on their own. And I've been really guilty of that, of being able to, like, just as an empath, and
Oh.
having a very, like, just really strong understanding of psychology and why people do the things that they do, and just being able to see the, like, good and the potential in people,
Mhm.
but not knowing
Mm.
to be like this.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
Oh,
You have
guilty.
potential, but let it be.
I am so guilty of that. And I know so many other women that are watching this will be guilty of this too. And that's okay, because we are beautiful souls and we're empaths and we're very emotionally mature to realize, oh, he probably just said that because. And that's great. Like, I do believe, like, a lot of men, like, they do need some of course they need compassion and patience sometimes, and that works out great for some people, which is great. I'm not saying, like, the first thing he says and then you must bin him straight away if he does this. Of course, like, we all need compassion and patience, but I'm so guilty of that, and I know so many women, other women are, of falling for the potential and falling for, oh, but he's so good on paper, or, oh, but he did something amazing 6 weeks ago. And it's like, I'm not saying that a man has to be perfect and always consistently perfect, but if the scales are starting to get a bit unbalanced with the good and the bad, like, that's when we need to start thinking about possibly not putting all of our eggs in one basket, as I like to say, with men, and stop falling for the potential. Like, fall for how this person makes you feel, and how, and their actions, not their potential, not their words, actions, and how you feel when you are on the phone with them, when you are with them, when you're not with them. How are you feeling? Because a lot of the time your gut doesn't lie as a woman. Yes, we have, like, some things inner work that we need to do, and healing, and anxiety plays into that, and, like you were talking about before, like, attachment styles, but I think we always kind of know, like, how many times you've been in a situation with a guy and you've kind of known that it's not quite right, but you've just kept it going because of the potential or because of the empty promises. And a lot of the time women, we become, especially empaths and compassionate, sensitive women, we become therapy for that man, for broken men, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, we're all a little bit broken as well, but I have a collection
I have
of
invoices I need to send out.
I've got a whole collection, and I know so many of my friends and so many women in my family have a whole collection of men that they wanted to fix, and that they kept giving chance after chance to, and eventually it just depleted them, and it's given them this, it's played into this story that men can't be trusted and men are emotionally unavailable, and and I'll never find a man. There's no good men left. And it's like, I get it. God, I've
Those
been there so many.
people afraid to leave situations that are okay too.
Yes. Oh my God. And I see so many women in just like okay relationships, and they're like some of the most beautiful women you've ever seen, and they're like, they have these amazing careers and like amazing personalities, and they're just with these kind of just okay guys because they're like, well, I've been with him for 10 years, or oh, you know, he's a good guy, or you know, they just feel like they have to stay with them. And in the meantime, there's 1,000 other men out there that would absolutely love to just swoon over you and take you on these dates and tell you how amazing you are. But you're putting all your energy into this okay guy because I think a lot of women are scared, and that is completely understandable. But yeah, if you feel like there's no good men out there, you know, the whole confirmation bias thing, right?
That's
If you think life sucks, your mind has like a job to show you what you believe. And if you believe something for long enough and you keep saying it out loud long enough, there's no good men left in the world. Your mind will go, here you go, here's some evidence to show you that then.
That's the same thing with struggling to feel lovable and like your own self-worth. Relationship, like the cooking dinner, she wanted to go out with her friends, and she feel like herself, and she didn't make dinner that night. If you already struggle with I'm not capable or I'm not lovable, little things like that are going to be your own confirmation bias, which is exactly what you have to do that inner work to get to the point where you can be in a relationship, because otherwise you're just going to constantly look for evidence of what you already subconsciously deep down believe to be true.
Yes. And I was there for so long. And this is why I do what I do now, is because you can read all of the relationship books in the world. You can listen to all the podcasts and watch a few YouTube videos. You could go to therapy even and go to some retreats and see a healer. But what is really important is that you actually do that deep, sometimes scary shadow work, and really like, because if you're just doing all of these things like we've spoke about today, it's like if you haven't gone into like the childhood trauma of why you feel unlovable, of why you feel unworthy, of why men are unsafe, you're just going to keep all of these relationship tips and talk therapy are just going to keep building on this, but underneath it's just simmering all the time. It's like a weed, and we've all got a lot of weeds. You know, some are bigger than others, some have been pulled out already, but a lot of us in this society, I would say at least 95% of us, have all of these weeds, core traumas and core wounds that are subliminally ruling our life and what we see and what we experience, especially in romantic relationships and how people treat us. And if you just keep covering it up with books and therapy and retreats and maybe a little relationship coach here and there and some courses, you've still got this thing underneath that's going to keep you stuck, because it will keep repeating. You'll keep repeating the patterns, because if you don't feel worthy of love, if you don't feel good enough, if you feel like, and this is like, even if you don't feel that, if it's an unconscious core wound, you're just going to keep repeating these same toxic patterns and be like, I'm just unlucky in love. Oh, it's just men, you know? And I love to give men shit about things and all the things they're not doing and all the things that they're, you know, I'm a huge feminist, and I love to shit on men sometimes, even in front of my fiance, and he's like, yeah, you're right. we are terrible. But we have to take, as women, we have to take radical responsibility of who we are attracting into our lives and who we are allowing to stay in our lives. And if we keep repeating the same patterns, we've got to go down to the core. We've got to go down to those shadows, the places that we might feel scared to, and it doesn't have to be scary, by the way. And the childhood stuff that is like conditioned and programmed and like built into us, even from our ancestry. Like, it goes back. Like, some of this stuff isn't even ours, you know? Like,
Yes.
it's crazy.
What is that? So that's the journey that I'm on. And I know there's no like, oh,
That's
just
why you met me.
yeah. So I know there's no like quick answer for that. I guess I'm doing so many different things and I am making great progress, but there's this like, am I doing enough? You know what I mean? And so like when you are doing that work, and obviously you're a coach because you have gotten to the other side of that and you have a healthy relationship that manifested as a result of that work. And then, you know, your own, since you can't, above everything else, your own self-love and journey back to yourself. What did that work look like? Like day in the life of you just in the trenches doing that work. What does that look like?
Oh, girl. Well, you know, it was a 6-year-long journey from what I can really, well, I mean, it's been a 33-year-long journey, but from the trigger point, the like real like breaking point where I was like, I've got to fucking figure this out. Like, I cannot keep doing this with men. Like, I don't want to end up being like in this constant loop. And I didn't know that there was a way out. I just thought this was what it was because that's what I've seen in family and friends and movies and whatever. But I was like, okay, I keep attracting like emotionally unavailable guys or guys that like love bomb me and then leave. Or, you know, and don't get me wrong, I have had some lovely relationships. I've had some lovely relationships in my younger years, but it's always ended in like cheating or boredom or, you know, just fizzling out, you know, because we weren't right for each other in the end. But it was, you know, I can't say all the guys I've been with have been terrible. They haven't. I've had some lovely relationships. But, you know, towards the end of my 20s, I started getting into a lot of different situationships and thinking, this is the one. Okay, this is the one. Like, he's doing all these things, tick, 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 tick. And then it would always sort of end very similarly. He would really come to me, and then I would be like, oh, you like me? Okay, let me do this thing for you, and let me do this, and look how cool I am. Oh, yeah, I'm such a cool girlfriend. And then he would pull away. And he would go, oh, you know, this is what they would say. You're just too good for me. And I'd be like, well, if I'm too good for you, then why don't you want to, like, stay with me? You know, choose me, please choose me. So I noticed myself getting in these cycles, and I had one heartbreak that just really was like the end for me. I was depressed. I was anxious. Some days I didn't want to be alive. Let's say that. It was that dramatic. I was living in Vietnam at the time, which was awesome, but it was also very chaotic. And there was days when I was just like, I'm done. End it. I'm gone. And I was like, wait, I have to figure out what is going on here. And so I did all the things, you know, I started going on all the journeys. And luckily in Vietnam at the time was a really good place to go to yoga retreats and have a shamanic healing and get a Reiki practitioner. You know, you could do all the things. It was great. So I just did freaking everything. I was like, heal me, please. I am broken. I am so, and it's, none of this is my fault, you know, it's all just men, and I'm clearly just unlucky, and, you know, didn't want to take any responsibility. I was just like, just please, just do anything, just wave your drum over me, whatever you need to do, give me all the crystals. And
Oh my
it's quite
God, I
funny
feel
actually.
so attacked.
We've all done it. And we're all doing it, and I'm still doing it. Like, don't get me wrong, I do it now, but I do it with like business stuff. I'm like, give me all the courses, give me all the mentoring. But that's how we learn, right? And that's how we discern what is good for us and what's not, doesn't work for us. And one of the amazing things that I did was, funnily enough, a shamanic healing. And at the time I was like, who is this white woman with a drum calling herself a shaman? What the hell? I didn't think white people could be shamans. I was like really judgy, but I was like, just do what you need to do. And it was amazing. I didn't really know what she was doing, but I felt something, and I was like, whoa. And she stopped in the middle. I told her what was going on with like breakups, and I was heartbroken and everything. And she was like, oh my God, I'm just like, this is really strong for you. But number one, she said, you're a healer and you need to become a healer. So I went on that journey. But the second thing, which was really important, she said, I've got a picture of you in my head. I've received a picture of you as a little 5-year-old girl, sat in a corner crying, feeling unloved by your father. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't really want to like get into that, but at the time I was so naive. I was like, oh, that's nice. Yeah, well, my dad didn't love me. He abandoned me, and you know, he left when I was this age, and I sort of but I'm over it. I'm done. I've done loads of work on that. It's nothing to do with that. And she was like, I think you need to explore this. So one of the biggest things for me in my healing journey was exploring the abandonment wound, which is huge. And it's also very subtle for a lot of people. Like, you don't necessarily have to have been abandoned per se, but as children, especially with boomer parents, no offense, boomers, love you, you were doing your best, but they were often taught to leave us to cry. Did you guys have that? Cry it out.
Ruined like a whole generation of people.
A whole generation. And they were brought up by people, post-war, children should be seen and not heard, right? So we are already being, and they don't know this, obviously, love them to bits, but we were experiencing as babies such a disconnection from our mothers and our fathers, and that creates like a huge abandonment wound in a lot of us, and we don't even realize that we have it, because we're like, well, I had quite a good childhood, like nothing bad happened to me. But actually something, a huge thing happened to most of us when our cord was cut at birth, and then when we were put in a separate room to our caregivers, we were vulnerable people, like little things, and that causes an abandonment wound in a lot of people. So that is a big one. Self-worth wound is obviously a massive one too. And that's how I got onto this journey of self-love and just learning better ways to sort of pour that love back into myself through hobbies, through friendships, being more vulnerable with people as well. Like, if you met me 10 years ago in my 20s and people said, hey, how are you? I'd be like, yeah, good, yeah. I learned to start saying, actually, I'm actually not that great. And that was really healing for me, because then it connected me more. It connects you more with people, because they're like, oh, okay, if they want to help, they'll help. And that vulnerability creates stronger connections with people. So the healing journey for me was, funnily enough, the shamanic woman was the beginning, and now I am a shamanic healer myself. And just so you know, anyone that's watching this, white people can be shamans, because there is shamanic roots in Celtic and Norwegian and Swedish and like the Scandinavian countries. So shamanism does also come from Celtic roots and Scandinavian roots as well. So it's okay. It's not cultural appropriation.
Amazing.
I had to make sure of that before I really got into it. So yeah, shamanism, energy healing, but one of the biggest points for me was really just practicing that self-love every day in an authentic way and not letting others affect that. Um and learning deep energy work and deep shadow work. Like the shadow work thing is so important, and it's the thing that so many people avoid because number one, they either don't think that they have something to work on, or they think I've already done that. Right, this is what we hear all the time. People think they've done it, but there's so much more deep stuff. If you're still getting triggered by the same things, you have not done the work. You need to go deeper and more courageously sometimes. And I think people fear it because in therapy and counseling, it can sometimes re-traumatize people, or some things re-traumatize people. But the work that I do, it is not re-traumatizing. You don't even have to tell me what happened to you for us to actually work on that core weed, the core wound that I'm talking about, to actually go in, feel, release is actually so much quicker than dealing with it for a lifetime. And sometimes you can do it in one session. If
So
you
you're
actually,
saying you go in and you bring it to the surface, and it's not like it just goes away, but people still have to feel it. Like it's you're helping them bring it up to be felt and released. Is that what you're saying?
yeah. So you don't have to like, a lot of the time, sometimes you don't even have to think about the event. It's more about the energy that has been stored and trapped in the body, because whenever this event happened, and even if it was from in your DNA, from an ancestral thing, something in your body or in your soul contracted and either fragmented away to protect you, or stuck there like frozen, and then everything on top starts to build up as like a protective mechanism. So okay, I'm never going to love anyone again because I don't want to get hurt. Okay, I'm never going to speak in public because I don't want to be blah blah blah. And it's like these protective things: anxiety, depression, OCD, ADHD, you know, all of these things build up on top to protect us from feeling that first contraction, that first weed I keep talking about, the core wound. And what we do in a somatic rebirth therapy, and you can do this in breath work as well, but I incorporate breath work into this. It's getting into the body, feeling the physical feeling or the energetic feeling of it, and yeah, releasing. So releasing can look like crying, coughing, shaking, just toning, which is like one of my favorite things is using the voice, like to just release from the throat, because the throat is the purification point for energy to leave and to go. Once it's out of the body, yes, there will be some other things that you might need to do, like you do need to integrate, because now you have this like this space. You know, so many people that work with me say, oh my God, I've got so much space now. Like they don't have so many ADHD tendencies because there's room in their brain that's not being compounded by all of these energetic sort of ways to protect them. So it's like, yes, somatics, as you probably know, is the feeling, the releasing, and helping that stored trauma that's creating all of these emotional charges and triggers and protective systems in your body, releasing it from the body, and not from talking about it from the mind. It's in the body. The
Do
body
you
knows what to do.
when you and I'm so fascinated by energy work. I think it's incredible. I think it's incredible the deeper I dig into like, oh, we don't have to attach stories to everything about why it's stuck there or whatever. But I do think something that you said about, so you went to this healer and they helped you create this space, but then there was so much work still for you to do, and that's the shadow work of, ooh, where is this coming from? Let me bring this to the table. Like,
Mm.
feel like releasing that energy kind of helped open you up to be able to do the shadow work
Mm.
you needed to do?
No, the releasing the energy, sorry, I probably explained that a bit confusingly. Releasing the energy is the work. It's one of the deepest things you can do. But so what I meant by the work, there's still work to do afterwards, is I mean, it's not work. Like once you've released it, you've done the hardest part of that journey for you. In my work, we do the death is the first section, which is the release. And then the rebirth is the bringing in the new light and love into that space. That space that has been emptied from what you've created, from that weed being pulled out of the soil of your soul, of your body. You've now got a hole in the soil. You can now plant it with beautiful love, compassion, self-love, compassion for the person that may have done that to you, the perpetrator, is really important and what a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah.
But that's the work. It's very gentle work. It's rest, you know? It's bringing more creativity into life, bringing more play into your life, integrating it in a restful way and not going straight back to the screen, straight back to work, straight back to the phone. It's integrating and being like, wow, I just did a big thing for myself, for my ancestors, and for the people who may come after me, because you've cut off that generational trauma, which it normally is, at the root. It's like you've done that big work, and now the work is to just pour more love into yourself, pour love into the perpetrators that did that to you, because there's always a karmic tie for that, which is hard for a lot of people to hear, but that might be for another day. and also taking, I guess the next work would be taking aligned action as to the person that you now get to be, from the person who is no longer having that unworthiness core wound. Take action now, so you're not going back into the patterns, slipping back into the habits. So that would be the work. Sorry. Yeah.
I think that can be really hard because I've had some pretty powerful releases, somatic releases through different modalities, and sometimes it's kind of like, what does that look like? What does that person that you want to be look like? I mean, you don't know any other way to be. So literally learning that is a really challenging thing, and kind of figuring out, like, for me, like I had one journey where I worked with plant medicine where it was a really heavy release, and people pleasing came up a lot, and like my
Mm.
disappointing people pleasing. And after that experience, it was a very powerful release. And I would go to set a boundary, and the somatic pain in my stomach was no longer there, which was incredible. But I
Mm.
had a lot of experience setting boundaries. So now there was
Yes.
pain that I felt that made it even harder for me to do. But that didn't mean I necessarily knew how to do it very well, or like what it,
Yeah.
or even a balance, because it doesn't mean like I'm never doing anything I don't want to do ever again. I don't care if you're my best friend and it's your birthday. Like, like there's this
Yeah.
pendulum to swing too far. So it's finding a balance of what was the trauma and the old patterns, and what
Yeah.
is like, where's that in between for me. And that's goes
Yeah. That's.
we were saying about, like, even earlier when you were talking about women deciding, you were like, well, it's not to say that you're never going to feel resentment or you never do this. It's all about listening to yourself, right? Because another person can't tell you, oh, well, this should be good enough for you, or this should be fine, or why are you upset? You have to be able to be in tune with yourself to say, like, okay, well, my needs are not, I've communicated my needs and they're not being met, and this is not going to work for me. And I guess like learning to trust that and not look outside of yourself, it's the same thing, for once you've released all of that somatically, and then you're like, okay, well, who the fuck am I now? And
Mm,
it's learning to trust your intuition. And I know, like, for me personally,
yes.
a lot of people, that's a journey and it's hard.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's where the real work starts, right? That's what we always say when we do our ceremonies. It's like, you're here for the weekend and you get to experience all this amazing release and clearing, and you are healing, but the real work starts when you go out into the world now as this new, you're not a new person, but you have more space, and you're more healed, and things don't trigger you as much, but it's still, things we always say, like, things will come to test you. They'll
Oh,
be like, and it'll be like the universe will give you like a little assignment to be like, are you really still a people pleaser? And it's like, that's where you get to sort of practice it, as hard as it feels, but you get to practice it, the action, from a healed place that now doesn't hold that same emotional charge as it did from when you were a kid. Because that's what happens when we are normally acting from our inner child, right, who doesn't feel safe. But hopefully now this inner child feels a bit safer in this situation, because the core wound isn't there. You get to come at it from a different place, as the healed. I'm not saying completely healed, I don't think we're ever completely healed, but as the more healed version of you, who has more compassion, has more space, has more self-worth, because that's what a lot of people pleasing is you don't, right? That would have been a self-worth core wound, that you picked up from somewhere, that you had to be a people pleaser to get love, to
yeah.
have safety, to be fed, even sometimes, or to protect yourself from danger. So when you go out into the real world again after you've been on your ceremony for the weekend, that's when the real work starts, and that's where you get to take aligned action from a more healed, balanced place, hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
That's the initiation.
So thinking about, and I'm going to use myself as an example, but I'm sure I think it's a general question that a lot of people probably experience. Like, I don't think that you have to be at your like most perfect self or whatever to have a relationship. In fact, I think that you can do all the work by yourself, and then it's just going to be sitting there waiting, because you have to do work with another person at some point. But I do think that you need to be in a good spot to make decisions about who that other person is. And
Yeah.
at what point, like in your journey, did you decide, okay, I'm ready to like go and date people again? I'm at a place to date people. Like, what do you think is a good
Ooh.
rule of thumb for to say, okay, yes?
Mm. Wow, that's a great question. I think I always say, like, there's no perfect formula
Yeah,
for
because that's
relationship.
intuition piece too.
It's intuition. Yeah, it's really funny because we have these ideas of, like, oh, don't sleep with someone on the first date, it's never going to work, or don't do this, or if he does this, it's kind of like there's no perfect formula because everyone is different. There are certain things that I teach which I'm like, help women look out for this and go for this. But for me personally, I think I'd been celibate for about 6 months after being with the guy who I was heartbroken by. I don't want to say the guy who broke my heart because that gives my power away, and it was my heart was broken because of my traumas. But I was like celibate for 6 months, and I was kind of like, I swore off men. I was like, nah, I'm not doing this again. I'm not doing it. I'm, the next guy who comes into my life would have to be absolutely amazing. I'm not settling for anything less, and I want to have the most self-love that I can possibly have before letting that happen again. Because by that point, I knew it was like a me problem. And so I think, and it wasn't until I actually met my fiance, and I didn't really give him the time of day for a few weeks when we were dating, because I kind of just was like, nah, I was in that very like queen mode, like, you have to prove to me that you're worthy, and you have to sort of, I was still kind of guarded, and we just happened to meet. It wasn't really like I went, okay, now I'm ready, now I'm like feel ready, and I feel good to go meet men. We just happened to meet, and I made him, I didn't put him on a pedestal like I used to do with all the guys I ever dated, and I didn't put all of my eggs in one basket, and even though I wasn't with anyone else, I just didn't want to get my hopes up about this guy, which I think is what a lot of women do. They're like, oh my god, he's like Prince Charming, and then the limerence thing. So in answer to your question, I'm like, there isn't a perfect time. I think if you are, as a woman, if you are doing your work and loving yourself as you are, and just doing some of these practices just to know how worthy you are of healthy epic love, and you're doing all of these things, and you're being all of these things, and a man happens to come along, or you decide to start going on dating apps again, or going on to dating things, it's like the integration. You have to just do by practice, I guess I would say, and trusting your intuition, letting the guy show you, not tell you, show you that he is worthy to be in your life. Is he going to be an addition, or is he going to take away? And just, I guess it's like putting the practice wheels on,
Yeah,
really.
I
There's
think
no perfect moment.
you have to be ready to hold you hold true to your standards and your values, but also have a
Absolutely.
more discerning eye, and really more in tune with your intuition. I saw a video that I thought was really interesting. I seem to fall into the trap, and I know, ooh, you hear what I just said? I draw in. I
Mm.
emotionally avoidant men who don't show that at first. They use
Yeah.
their, whatever they use to come in strong, and then there's this then you see the emotional avoidance. But I didn't see it historically, or I chose not to see it because I'd already at that point created a limerent idea of them in my head, and which is hard to sever from. And
Yeah.
the so I know that I draw that in, but I saw a lady who is a therapist, and she talks a lot about attachment styles, and she said that something that you can ask someone, because sometimes it is hard to see in the beginning that they're emotionally avoidant because they have a mask of not being emotionally avoidant up.
Yes.
Takes a
Yes.
while, they can pretend to not be for a while if that's even what they're doing, consciously or subconsciously or whatever. And she said, ask at some point, a few dates in, about their former relationships. Like, say, what did you do to recover from your last serious breakup? Because if they
Yeah.
say something to the effect of, oh, well, sometimes people aren't a match, and I just moved on. If they say anything that doesn't include a level of processing, they're avoidant, or there's a good chance
Yes.
tendencies, because that means that
Mm.
shut it out and went on. There was never a true processing of the relationship. Like a healthy person ideally would be saying something to the effect of like, oh, I really leaned on my family or my friends, or I turned inward and did a lot of inner work, or, XYZ. Like, if
Yeah.
someone's saying, oh, it just didn't work out and I just moved on, sometimes that can be a flag that they're a band-aid. the
Yes.
So I thought
And
that
I
was
think,
interesting.
yes, definitely. And I think we were talking before this in the green room about when we were messaging, you said something about the soul connection as to like how people come into your life. Was that right? Something
Yeah,
like
soul
that?
contracts.
Well, this is what just popped up for me then when you said that. It's like the universe is giving you, and you can see the universe as like you. It's you. Your
Yeah,
soul is giving you these assignments with these avoidant types in a sort of, this is what I would get from this. If you were my client right now, I would be telling you like, you keep attracting in these avoidant types to show you self-love
yeah,
and to help you heal, because it might have to come to a point where you go, oh my god, fuck this, I'm never doing this again. Let me do the shadow work on that, which you have already done with the plant medicine. Is that the self-worth thing? You don't need to, you're being brought these avoidant style guys to bring you out of yourself and feel that self-worth core issue again and to trigger it.
yeah.
And I think if that's healed, and once that's healed, you will naturally repel those types of people anyway. Like, of course, some are going to slip through the cracks, but
That's why I have to
um,
use my tools of discernment.
yeah, it's just like you won't feel as much connection as you used to now,
Mhm.
because you don't have that charge. Like, yeah, oh yeah, he's for us, like going, your inner child going, oh yes, let's be chosen by this one, yay, let's do the things.
So that's what I was thinking about this. So that's what it is. There's something special. If you are, and I know like from that, I know that's what my soul, however you want to look at it, whether you're into
Yeah.
spirituality or not, I know that that's what my soul is here to learn, is exactly what you said. And I know that these
Yeah.
are things, but it's so interesting to me to figure myself out, because I'm like, I'll meet all of these like guys, like great guys but I struggle to feel anything for them because my subconscious is looking for something so specific. And then when it finds it, it's like, ooh, this. And it's funny because
Ooh. Yeah.
it manifests, they look different. It doesn't, it's, if you were to line up the times that I've just really felt it taken in by someone and their
Mm.
energy, it's, they don't necessarily seem the same on the outward. It's that emotional avoidance at the core. And I think there's just some fantasy about, if he can change for me, if I can
Oh,
make a difficult man change for me, then I'm really special. And that I think that's how I've been
I've
dating.
been there so many times. It's like, like you want like, yeah, like the emotionally unavailable musician. It's like he's so cold and cool, but if he likes me, then it means, yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah.
How often is that trope in movies though? Like, oh, it's
Oof.
always as the like, and I think about myself. I'm gonna use Vampire Diaries as an example, but this trope is in movies. There's this triangle where there's the girl and there's the one brother who's very like cold and everybody thinks is an asshole. And then there's the like really sweet romantic brother. And I'm rooting for the asshole brother the whole time because he is only like vulnerable and only loving towards her, and to everyone else
Oh.
an asshole. And the whole time I'm rooting for that. And I'm like, I want
Yeah.
to watch this again in Memorial State and see what a like
Mm,
narcissist this guy is. But it's that
yeah.
theme of if you can get the most closed off or difficult, hard, stone walled men to open up to you, there's like it's like this. Oh well, I'm enough. That makes me stand out. I'm something.
Mm, yeah.
And
It's
how many women
so
are doing that? That's a really common thing.
it's so common. It's so common because that's the whole trope, isn't it? Like so many of us want the bad boy and not the good guy. Well, oh, and we'll say, oh, it's just so misunderstood. It's like, no, he's not. He's just not for you. Um, but of course, like a lot of that comes from, the daddy issue thing. A lot of us came from uh fathers that weren't around or fathers that weren't particularly loving, and as kids that's all we wanted. We wanted the masculine to choose us and love us, because we needed that. We that's what we felt we needed as vulnerable beings. Oh god, if the male of the pack doesn't love me, then I'm gonna be fucked forever, and I'm gonna die, literally. Like, you know and that's where a lot of that stuff comes with. I've even met women that have great relationships with their dad, and they're like, no, my dad's my best friend, and blah 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 blah. But then we've gone deeper into it, and it was something that their mum felt with her dad, and it had been passed on through her DNA into the daughter, because yeah, and that is a part. It becomes a part of you. And it can also happen from the mother wound as well, don't get me wrong, but a lot of the times when I see these women going for bad boys and unavailable men, it's usually a daddy issue. Yeah.
About that. So talking about like sometimes you have clients and you get to the root of like the stuck part and it comes out and it makes this huge difference. Like I know that I've came so incredibly far in my journey. I would say that I'm like the universe just sent me the most the toughest challenge they could have sent, and I decided, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. And I
Yeah.
actually am the first time ever like feel good about it. I feel like, oh, I chose myself. Finally, it may have took me a little while, but
Mm.
I chose myself and I'm ready to like break this pattern. Um,
Yeah.
just the daily, like that's where I am on the journey. And then I have, more to go. But I do feel finally, I feel it in my heart that
Yeah.
I'm done with that particular lesson. So it's exciting, but it's also, like you said, there's a lot more work and pain and stuff to uncover. So I have had some pretty strong somatic releases through different experiences. But I have a lot of heavy, like my dad, on my mom and my dad's side, there's like lines
Mm.
and lines of dysfunction. When you see
Yeah.
people like that, is it likely that they're going to need a lot more somatic work to keep clearing?
Not necessarily, because somatic work it often works in layers. However, if you get to the main core wound, and that could be something, and this is quite out there, but sometimes it's from a karmic place or a soul level place. And if you can get to the very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm thinking of like a seed, like the core of the core. It's
Mm,
not necessarily what happened to you in this life. It may have been something way down the generations that's been passed on as a belief, in your DNA. And also further back with, if you want to go really woo, past lives and soul level karma.
I believe in all the things.
Yeah. Well, I've experienced it firsthand. I've always been very skeptical, and I still keep a healthy dose of skepticism when I'm doing anything in this work. But I've experienced it firsthand where something that I thought was something from my dad was actually something from a past life. And when I finally got to that piece, which was like a witch wound kind of piece, which is becoming more of an acceptable term to use now, that's when I finally felt free from that piece. But it's also, so getting to the core will really help. The core will really help. So it's layers, and sometimes you don't even need to go layer and then take a layer and then sometimes you just go straight to it. If we can go really freaking deep in a session, and depending on how much that person is surrendered to that side of things, that could be the thing that pulls out the root from everything else that has happened.
Wow.
Whether it be on your mum's or father's side. However, like I keep saying, like, the real work is you, like what you just said, is like you took a really courageous action to break the pattern. Because we can do all of this healing work. It's like why I've got three pillars in my work. You need the healing work as the foundation, but if you just sit and meditate and heal and do somatic release and breath work all day, and don't actually go out and meet high value empowered men, you're not really healing, because you need the other pillars as well, like taking the aligned action. Because once you've taken that action, like I saw the way your eyes lit up when you said it, like your face changed. It's like you then give yourself more trust in yourself, and it's building that trust by taking those little actions and big actions. And so that's the healing work as well. It's like, yeah, you might not have to go back to a soul level karma piece to really heal all these things. Sometimes it just takes saying no to someone who you would have said yes to 5 years ago. And that's, yeah. And like, you're your own healer. You know, you can use all these modalities, but you are healing yourself by going, okay, I've done that. That was hard. I had to take loads of plant medicine and probably vomit or whatever. But
literally.
yeah. Being there. And I love it.
It took literally plant medicine, vomiting, all the things to get to, and then it's like, then the real, this journey is no joke. I just want to acknowledge that, like, it's incredibly rewarding. I'm feeling this low. I'm not on the other side of it, but I know how incredibly rewarding it is to be like where you are on the other side. You have met your divine counterpart, but the journey is just, whew.
Yeah. But also, do you know what? It doesn't have to be either. You just don't know. And if you're looking for him, you just don't know when that person is going to turn up. Like, I was not expecting my fiance to turn up. We met on a Tuesday night, you know? The initiation was, you know, I could have never seen him again and gone, no, I hate men, you're all shit. But the initiation was for me to go, actually, this is a good opportunity for me to practice everything I have been freaking learning. And the universe has sent me this assignment in the form of a really beautiful, amazing man. And I could get really triggered by some of the things that are happening right now, but actually I'm going to take what I've learned and actually act upon them, and not fall back into the patterns that I used to do in the other relationships with people pleasing and chasing and then sometimes I would get avoidant as well. But it doesn't have to be. I get so many so many beautiful women coming to me as clients and just being like, I've done so much. Like, when is the work? It's never done. And I'm like, do you know what? I hate this. I don't like to use this word devil. I need to find a better way of saying this, but every level is a new devil. So, you know, like, I'm still in my almost 6-year relationship. We still have to go through healing processes together, and every level is a new devil, you know, like we go traveling and then, oh God, this trigger comes up. It's like, yes, it doesn't stop, but that's life. Like life, we are here, our soul is here to learn and heal the things that our parents didn't do. And it doesn't have to be heavy. It can be really enjoyable. And I just don't want you to go away thinking like, oh, I've still got so much to do, because you just never know when this relationship's going to come in. And, you know, you're ready now.
I love how you just put that, because it's really like finding a person to do your work with, really.
Yeah.
And the big piece is that they are actually doing the work and having that.
Oh my God. It's huge. Oh my God, fuck. Like the work that we've had to do together. You know, he's 10 years older than me. So, you know, he's already lived a whole, we've both lived so many lives before we met each other. But, you know, he's got 2 kids. He was married. He came from a slightly different generation, not different generation, but kind of different in a way. And he grew up in New Zealand, I grew up in England, and we've both got our trauma. You know, you come together and you've both got all of these traumas and things that come up, and they could easily break you. But if you choose to go through it, and we both do our own process, and it's not like we get together and we're like, you know, but we talk about it, and he goes off and does his thing. And you know, which might include some like physical activity, and I'll go off and do my witchy woo woo thing. And then, you know, we come back together and we're like, oh shit, I realized that this thing came up for me and it triggered me, and I could have easily gone into like a bitchy, avoiding queen, I'm a queen, don't speak to me that way mode. But I chose to see it from a place of love and compassion. And so the healing never stops, because if you're a soul on a mission to become better and improve and heal like heavy shit, that people before us have never been able to do this, you know, we're living this crazy new life, and we're so aware of all these things now. We get to go and take plant medicine with shamans in the Amazon rainforest, and like, you know, like no one has done this really much before our generation. Like people have, but it's not, they couldn't talk about it like this, you know?
Yeah.
So you don't have to be a certain amount of healed to attract in your next big love or your next best friend or whatever. You just have to trust that what you're doing is bringing you closer to where you want to be, and everything is setting you up for that moment. You just have to keep doing what you're doing, being who you're being, and taking those little actions. Like you doing what you said you were so proud of doing is massive. You know? It's like you doing that has said to your soul and to your universe, I'm ready, you know? I'm not taking this shit anymore. I'm worthy of more. I am ready for my, I love what you called it, divine counterpart to come in. And when they come in, yes, we're going to get triggered, because relationships are our mirror. They're our biggest mirror. But if it's the right person for me, we're going to work at it together, and it's going to be worth it.
That's so beautiful. I love that.
And you learn to love yourself more. If you're with the right person, you will learn to love yourself more when you're with them, because they will make you become a better person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've almost been in tears like 10 times this episode. I'm like, you can't start crying in the episode, but honestly, you can. uh,
Yeah.
this
I
is so
do make a lot of,
beautiful.
I always make my clients, I say this all the time, I always make my clients cry, but they love it.
This is so beautiful in so many ways because I have been feeling like I know that my soul is here to learn self love, but for whatever reason, I think because it's so raw, because I'm in the trenches of the work, I have
Mm.
struggled to really be vulnerable and talk about it on the podcast or in like maybe like in theory, but not really like sharing. I've opened up about like my traumatic background and things like that, but to really talk about the deep level of struggle with self love and relationships that I've had, I have not
Yeah.
really been showing up and talking about on my platform. So, and I think that because that's the biggest work that I'm doing, of course I need to be talking about it. So this was a really great way to just me to be more vulnerable and talk about experiences because I know there are so many women that are going to relate. And then, of course, to have someone who also has been there and who coaches women here to share the wisdom has been incredible. So I'm so thankful. I
Mm.
want to end us out with asking you if you could tell women out there to do just one thing, like if there someone any on their level of on their level on their journey back to themselves and defining self-love, if there's just one thing you could say try every day, especially maybe just
Mm.
early on the journey, what would you say?
Mm. Yeah. So there's been many things for me on this journey, but I think if you want the highest yielding activity, it's I love breath work. It's great, and you can use breath work in this if you like. But one of my favorite things, I don't know if it's favorite, but it's the highest yielding, it's the most effective, is when I don't know if it would be a daily thing, but when you feel a trigger come up, uh, don't think about it in the mind. Ask the body, where is it? Take some moments, even if you're driving in the car, pull over, put the phone away, put any distractions away, and just connect in. Always connect in with the heart. So this has been a big one in my work and many women who I follow is when you're breathing, breathe into the heart space and also breathe into the womb space, because this is where we hold so much trauma from our own lives and from our mothers and grandmothers, passed down through generations. And this is where we hold a lot of trauma still. And breathing in and just connecting to the heart and the womb and asking the body, like, where is this trigger? Where does it feel? Where can I feel it in the body? Come out of the mind. Don't say, don't start trying to make a story around it. Or, oh, I probably feel like this because something that happened when I was 5, If you need to, that's fine, go there. But breathe into the heart, into the womb, and just ask the body, like, where can you feel this thing coming up? Like, why am I angry right now? And a lot of things that I work with women is suppressed anger. It's a massive one. And we think, oh, I'm not angry. You don't realize how much anger is stored, especially in a woman's body, because we are not, society doesn't often let us be angry, whereas men can be, but we're not allowed to express anger a lot because it's not seen as feminine. So feel into if there's anger here, like, if there's a self-worth thing, if there's I'm not good enough, and ask the body where it is. And when you can see it or feel it, you can give it a shape, you can give it a color, you can give it a texture, and just start moving it through the body, through your breath and through sound. And I love doing this in the car because no one can hear me. I might look like a crazy woman on the side of the road. Ah! But just start moving this energy. And if you need to cry, just cry. If you need to move the hips, if you need to move the rib cage, the heart, just like expanding out, just bring some movement to it. Because a lot of why we get anxious around these things is because we're just sat still and stagnant. You need to move. You need to start toning. So what sound does my anger have? What sound does my womb want to make? What sound does my heart want to make? Wherever it is, and just give it a sound. Is it like a pain, like and you'll feel it, and it starts to feel quite primal because we're not usually allowed to make these noises. And this is what I guide women through in my rebirth sessions: is they might want to scream, and every breath is. Remember, every breath is medicine and every exhale is the release. So just let yourself just feel this thing. Because I think what a lot of us do is when we feel triggered, we just go, okay, now I'm fine. And it's like you suppress it. And I know we can't always be like, or like cry in work or whatever, but we need to come back to it at some point, or if it's just going to become a compressed, tight thing in our bodies, and it's going to keep, you know how it goes. If we can release that thing, even if we can't do it in the moment, like the next day or before you go to bed, or when you wake up, and I wouldn't say when you wake up in the morning, before you go to bed, just check in and see like, oh gosh, yeah, I still feel resentment about having to do the washing today. What does that feel like? Okay, it feels like purple or green. Okay, bring it up. What sound does that resentment want to make? And then it might turn into shaking it out of the body. Just release through the mouth, release through the stuck energy. Just get it moving. Get it out. I really feel like for women especially, to use the voice to release, especially in an angry way or a really empowered way or a really loud way, it's so healing for us because we have been cut off from our voices for so long. Even just using the voice brings up a lot of emotion for women because we are told to be good and don't use our voice and don't scream and don't cry, and so
I like the car idea. I live in an apartment, and so this is so funny because I've been wanting to do this. I've been reading several times in reading, and I'm like, I want to just scream it out, but like, I'm scared someone will call the police. Because I live in an apartment. Oh, into a pillow. And part of me, I think, is scared to do it too, because I like kind of tried the other day in the shower. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna scream, and I like couldn't like bring it up. I don't know. Maybe I need to like prep myself better.
Yeah, it's so normal, like I say, especially for women. And I do it from this room sometimes, and I'm like, oh, I did it once with a lady and I forgot to give her a pillow, and it was just like this blood curdling scream, and I was like, oh my god, they're gonna call the cops, they're gonna think someone's being murdered. And at the end of it, she was like, oh, that was the best ever, oh my god, I feel amazing. But I was like but yeah, so with women, we are a lot of us are very constricted in our voice. It's, generations of, being suppressed. And yeah, I think if you could do it in a pillow or, if you're in the shower, you don't have to scream. It can just be it can be a really ugly, like a really gut, it's like this gut sound, like when I'm
I haven't gotten that much out.
yeah, and the vibration also, the science of it is when you're humming, you actually stop a lot of your thought. If you hum, it's really hard to think about anything else.
Which is why people
Right?
hum. You think people hum when they are trying to meditate. Interesting.
Yeah, because it cuts off a lot of the thought patterns, and so humming, the vibrations of the voice, the physical act of using your voice as a woman is really great and empowering. And it's just a practice, I used to be quite scared of using my voice, and then I became a singer, and it's really just a practice of just being human, you know? It's like this wild woman wants to come out, but she's so in there, and it's like, just, it's, you know, I still give a fuck what people think of me sometimes, but sometimes I'm just like, I don't care. I'm only here for, you know, a short amount of time. I'm the main character of my life. Like, if you hear me screaming and you want to ask me why I'm screaming, I'll tell you. You might want to try it yourself. But yeah, just if it does help, and especially for the listeners as well, just, even just the act of opening the mouth wide like an animal. You see it, cats and lions and dogs doing it. That's a really good thing for the nervous system. And sticking the tongue out, and just moving, and just really just getting like a bit wild with it, you know, just like getting back to our roots.
I love it. I love it. This has been so incredible. Thank you so much for being here. I wish that you lived here. Do you offer like your services is the best way to, because I know people in New Zealand or in other places will be listening as well. Are your services primarily for people in your area, or do you have some things that you do over like Zoom also?
No, everything can be over Zoom. Yeah, it's just as powerful. Obviously, you won't receive like the same sort of like I make it very immersive when it's in person, but this work can be done online because it is so somatic, and the energy work that we work with and the way that I speak people through it is perfect online. And that's actually how I received my first somatic rebirth session, and I fell in love with it, and I was just like, wow, this is powerful, because I'm guiding you as your own healer to do. I'm just guiding you, so it's just as good. And if you need to lay down on a bed, you can do it at home. It's actually even better, because you get to do it from your own home. Yeah.
What is the best way? Is Instagram the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can follow me on the Alchemy with Albany, and yeah, and you can just like message me or comment or whatever. And soon I will be releasing a free masterclass for Empowered and Adored. So that's going to be talking with women, successful women, how to attract in epic, healthy soulmate love with an empowered masculine man. And yeah, so that's going to be one of my offerings soon. But for now, we can just talk on Instagram. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening in, and see you next time.
Thanks, Taylor.
Okay, stopped recording.